So I've been learning Blender for 3 months and thought I, a complete beginner, could 3D animate Honkai Star Rail in 1 week. More specifically, I want to try and recreate the character Acheron in one of her scenes from my trailer. With that in mind, let's break down this process. So on day 1, I started to create the character with the usual sculpting process, but keep in mind, still need a lot of work. I still can't seem to get the facial proportions right, like the cheeks. I usually make my characters too skinny for their own good, and they end up looking, well, malnourished. Anyway, I haven't created a female character since my first video, which was almost 2 months ago, and I've mainly been doing male characters, which I usually make my male characters have a really sharp jawline and very defined cheekbones, but I realized that doesn't look so good for female characters. So to make this female character look good, my main 2 priorities were to pump up the cheeks a bit more and make the lips bigger. Once getting a decent enough look to the character, I started creating her hair. I haven't made female hair before with Blender's particle hair system, so it took me some time to get a decent enough look. But after this, I started to add color. The painting process. For female characters, I went with more red cheeks, eyelids, and lips to kind of try to show that she's wearing a bit of makeup. But for some reason, I just couldn't get the paint to look good. For some context, Acheron has 2 forms, kind of like her cool form and then her normal form. And when she goes cool form, which is the form I want to make here, her skin tone becomes what basically looks like pure white, which is maybe the reason why she doesn't look too good here, because when trying to go for a more realistic style than the game, she now basically looks like a ghost. So I decided to try to use a very unsaturated kind of skin tone color and not the pure white, so it still had some color to it, but still mostly looked white in a lot of lightings. And overall, I think that helped a lot. I also did a second paint for her normal form, which all I had to do was just make her skin tone more saturated and less white. And with the character modeling and paint done, this took the entire first day. And on day 2, I started to create her clothing. Her clothing was quite complex and had a lot of finer details, which was definitely a huge step up for me compared to my previous characters. The process was relatively the same for all pieces of clothing, it just took quite a lot of time, and overall took about 2 whole days. And with 3 days in total now gone, I realized that her 2 forms don't share all the same clothing, and there are some noticeable parts that are completely different. But if I still want to be able to animate, create environments, add effects, and composite all the scenes from the trailer, I can't spend another day or so creating more clothing. So in the end, I just changed the color of the clothing to match the purple theme she has going on in her normal form. And I know it doesn't look all that good, and doesn't match her outfit perfectly, but it will have to do. A key component in this trailer is also her sword, so I started to try and model the sword, but realized how incompetent I was, and realized if I actually wanted it to look good, it would take way too long, which as of right now, I did not have the time for. So I used a 3D model I found online instead, and textured it. Now with the character done in 3 days total, I moved on to the rigging process on day 4. Rigging is the process of adding bones to a character so you can then move those bones to move the character. The first step to 3D animating. For this, I used the built-in Blender human rig and adjusted it to fit my character. And once that was done, I began to start animating the scenes. Luckily, the scenes were not too complex animation-wise, and to animate her hair, I just used some wind to affect the hair. But when trying to use this same wind with the cloths on her outfit, it was just not looking right at all. So 2 hours later, I made bones for each of the cloths and attached the cloths to these bones so I could just animate the movement of the cloths myself. Overall, animating each scene took in total about 1 entire day. So now, on day 5, I created the environments. If you saw in the trailer, the environments look sort of like a cyberpunk city, which I have zero idea how to make in 3D. So instead, I just modeled the more close-up objects, like the street, the pillars on the street, some lampposts, and a couple extra things. And then to get the Cyber City look in the background, I just used a plane and put images I found online of cyber cities onto these planes. And honestly, came out a lot better than I expected. But there was one major issue. The one scene in the trailer, Acheron has her foot slide across the ground and water splashes up. And I have zero idea how to make that. But that's the point of these projects, to help me learn something new each time. So like I always do when trying to learn something new, is search a YouTube tutorial, water simulations in Blender. After about 3 or 4 hours, I got a decent look to the water splashing, which just involved using fluid simulations in Blender. Now, with day 6 and 7 left, I have to take all the rendered videos and start to add effects. More lighting, rain, sound effects, and overall, just make everything look better. When adding in some of the effects, I noticed that there were these pedals in the video, but at the time, I only had about a day left and couldn't think of a fast way to do it while still making it look good. So unfortunately, I had to skip the pedals. Overall though, I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out, though I do wish I could have made it better by actually having her accurate clothing and those pedals. But if you wonder why I only give myself 7 days to make these videos, it's because I'm still so new to Blender and feel like the more projects I make, the more I will learn. Because each new project I take on is a little different than the previous, and each time I'm able to learn something new. With that, I hope you enjoy the final animation.
過去のデッサン涙のプリズム渡り側